connecting all these clutch plates together. So you're disengaging the clutch. You're disengaging any motion from the engine to your transmission. So here's a clutch cover. So that push rod, these teeth go into this little gear right here. So when you pull on your clutch lever, it rotates this shaft, which then pulls that push rod out and disengages any motion from the engine to your transmission and wheel. Here, this little point down here is the third mounting point for the R1 engine. Here it's coming at a steep angle, and it has the same type of mounting point. Also, very important, if I wanted to remove the engine later, I couldn't do that if these are completely flush right here. So I've made spacers because the clutch cover and the other side go past where this would. So if I didn't put these spacers here, I would never be able to take the engine out. Here I've given up on the idea of not having a tensioner because I could not fix the issue of this being non-concentric and putting too much stress on the frame every time the axle rotated. So the solution was to make the chain slightly loose and have a chain tensioner on the slack side. So basically I welded a little tab to where it mounts on the bottom mount point of the engine, and I've run a bolt through here, connected an arm right here, and this is just a skateboard wheel that I've machined down a groove the same thickness as the chain, so the chain will fit in here and rotate like the wheel's just going to rotate about the bearings. A bolt goes through this arm, through the skate wheel bearings, and out the other side. So here you can see for a spring, I drilled a hole through the frame up here, put this bolt through and used spacers to line up where I wanted the bungee cord to line up, or I could have used a spring, but I have a spring going from here down to this side and a spring on the other side here. This needs to be balanced or this will be kind of cockeyed because you have a force right here and a force right here, and it would tend to rotate it, and I didn't want the chain falling out of the groove. Here's a close-up of the bungee cord attaching right here. Here's the chain fitting in that little groove of the skate wheel. So this rotates whenever the chain rotates. Here you can see there's a very small clearance between the frame and the chain. Here's that other spring on this side. Here's how I made all the coping cuts in the tubing. Here's a Harbor Freight tube cutter, tube notcher, and I just mounted it in my vise, and I just sit here with my drill and just cut through. I've made a piece connecting the rear, also connecting the two lower points of the engine to give lateral support. Here, now that everything is tack welded, I'm removing the engine so I could fully weld all the joints. So I'm going through and fully welding all the joints. Seems like I still have a lot to go. Once I was happy with all the joints, I am starting to strip all the paint off. So I just use a citrus stripper to get the powder coating off. Here's cleanup. I'm using I used the wire brush on an angle grinder and I think it was a polycarbonate attachment to really get it shiny. So after I completely cleaned off the paint with the stripper and the angle grinders, I make sure and degrease everything so the paint can adhere properly. So I used Rust-Oleum primer on this. I used several coats. Then I actually brushed it on with the primer, but for the spray paint to get a better finish, I used just the spray can. I used the professional line, I think, and I used 3 different coats. It took me a couple cans, but the finish came out nice. So after painting, I am reinstalling everything back in. I am cleaning up all the threads and either applying anti-seize or Loctite and torquing them to the correct torque. Here the engine's back on. Pretty much everything's assembled back together. This stuff was all pretty dirty, so the exhaust did not match. Obviously, a different color, and this was it had the normal paint from the factory, so I decided to paint this as well. So here's the exhaust fully painted. I think I ended up I used normal high temperature paint. I think it was designed for barbecue grills. So you can see I still don't have the muffler securely attached. I decided to put this little emblem right here because it looked like a spider to me. So here, I wanted to get a close-up of this. To attach the muffler, I cut out 2 little plates and mounted it, one on this one and one on the frame, and then I just got a round bar and holding it, tack welded it so it would be a perfect fit, and then fully welded it. Here you can see the very small clearance between the axle and the exhaust pipe. That's it.